This is the Live Well and Thrive podcast, hosted by Michael Torchia, health and wellness expert. It's time to shape up, America.
Hi, this is Mike Torchia, and welcome to Live Well and Thrive. I have a very special guest. This woman is unstoppable. She started her first business at 14, and she hasn't stopped since. She's a developer, interior designer, philanthropist, and just a wonderful human being. Her name is Elaine Culotti. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you about what's going on in our world up there in the Palisades, and environmental health is a nightmare.
Was your home affected at all?
I can't even argue. I can't say anything terrible. My homes are affected in that they're smoke damaged and they're between 15 and 25% burnt, but I did not lose a single structure completely.
Thank God.
It's just, it's a miracle, truly a miracle.
Now, what about the contamination? Are you concerned about that?
Yeah, very much. I mean, we have to be. Yeah. But I also think, like everything that happens, you have to have some sort of a reasonable head on your shoulders, because there's a lot of fear mongering, and people get completely freaked out. And so I have to be very careful about what I say. I don't think that every site is contaminated. I don't think that the EPA is behind at all in doing cleanup. They're really on it. They've got so they have EPA and EQA, and they're doing all the lithium battery removal is first, and they've gone to 60% of the houses. So, and they also have a list of all the ones that were permitted. So they're doing a great job. I think they're doing a great job. A lot of people want to say that it's going slower, they don't know who to talk to, and all of these things. But I have to say, our public utility companies have really risen to the occasion, and the dangers health-wise that are foreseeable, they are in front of.
I was really impressed with DWP. Right away, they had a crew come out and trim all the trees that were close to the power lines. They're really on it.
The DWP, I hope they give them some sort of a medal. I really do. I can't even begin to tell you the massive mobilization and success of this. They actually call these things manly man poles, by the way. I love that. They're metal manly man poles. They've changed every single pole out to aluminum. They'll be doing those copper covered ones, I think, because of the ocean, but from Sunset to Temescal, they're all done. There's hundreds of them. They've ran all new power. Everything is up and running. They're up in the deep part of the Palisades now. They're putting the beach back together. And Southern California Gas. Southern California Gas, I mean, think about it. Like, once a structure is burnt down, even if the gas is intact, when they do the clearing, that gas has to be severed because those bulldozers don't find gas. So they have to cut all that stuff, and it's a big job, and they're all over it. They're doing a great job. So
you as a developer, how do you feel about all these people now that are jacking up the prices of the rentals to ridiculous prices when people need homes and they shouldn't be preyed upon? How do you feel about that?
It's a double-edged sword. I mean, obviously, I don't believe in any kind of price gouging, whether it's milk or rent. Price gouging should be forbidden, and there should be consequences for that. That being said, having a rental in California is one of the riskiest and most expensive businesses you can be in because of our legislation. So, you can't get a tenant out, and you certainly can't get them out if they're in a bad situation. And your mortgages and your insurance and your cost of utilities and all of your repairs and things like that are all in place. So it's very difficult to be a landlord in California in general, especially during a crisis. Right. And we saw that during COVID. And so, buyer beware. You want to be a big landlord, you've got a lot of responsibility. So I don't believe in price gouging, but you have to understand the cost of being a landlord. Also, it's not inexpensive. And some of these people have never had to go look for a house. They've been in those homes 20, 30 years or longer, and they have no idea that the fair market rent value, is $611 a day. And that's according to California Fair Plan. So if you think about that, if you're paying $16,000 or $20,000 a month in rent, you have a paid off house. Is that price gouging? So what is price gouging? And I don't think that they've quite established that.
Well, the one incident I have a concierge service, and I have clients that need assistance from time to time to lease or rent houses. So one of my clients was affected, and she was looking at houses. And apparently before the fires, she had checked the prices because she was thinking of moving out of the area because she was renting the house where she was at. And sure enough, she saw a house, and it was quoted at $27,000, right? Now, after the fires, immediately went online for $35,000.
Yeah.
That's an $8,000 increase in just 2 weeks.
No, it's terrible.
And that I think is disgusting. I'm sure, of course, you should have a certain amount, but to increase it by that much is disgusting. And I just hope
it's so unfair to the people that are, have lost everything, and they're so traumatized. Everybody I talk to, they're almost like grieving. It's like I would call it grieving. They just lost everything. People are sifting through ash looking for, momentums of their children, and things like that. So it's no time to do that. And again, in some instances, I would agree that it's just egregious and should be dealt with, legally, and there should be a punishment for it of some sort, whether it's a fine or a moratorium or maybe some sort of a retraction on your ability to lease. I understand that. But I also want to be mindful of the increased cost in being a landlord, because of things like, the ULA tax, for example. We now have this quote-unquote mansion tax, which is 2 years old. And that sucked, at least to my count, $25 to $30 billion out of the economy and real estate trading. And they've only raised now in 2 years about $450 million, which is 20% of what they thought they would raise. Why? Why is that?
I don't get it either.
Because people who have properties that are $5 million or $10 million have to pay these taxes. They have money and they just won't sell them. So there's no real estate trading. And if real estate doesn't trade, in California, our real estate is our Wall Street. Okay? It has to move. It's a breathing, living organism, moving real estate. And if you take that business away, you take the business away from landscapers, you take that business away from escrow companies, from inspectors, from title companies, from real estate brokers and real estate agents. You take it away from developers and builders because nothing is moving. And once something becomes stagnant, it's like trying to kind of turn the Titanic. It takes a minute. And this 2-year BS with this tax has now slowed our market anyway. If they would get rid of it, if Gavin Newsom should go to a podium, because look, it's all about leadership. Being a governor, it's not necessarily, nobody knows everything. Okay, it's a very big job to run the 5th largest economy in the world. But if you're not a manager, if you're not a person who can communicate and take leadership and take responsibility and accountability and be culpable, you shouldn't be in that job. And so you have to start thinking about things every day when you get up that are solution based. There's $450 or $470 million sitting in the ULA bucket to be distributed to help homeless people, elderly people that need housing, okay? Take that money and put it into the Palisades. Do something constructive because you're not distributing it to the homeless people. We already know that we've paid $28 million or whatever and got more homeless people.
Yeah.
Never mind that there's statistics that say that 30 to 40,000 fires have been started by homeless people in the last 3 years.
Yeah, I remember that by the bridge downtown.
Yeah, that
it's crazy.
Closed the freeway. So my point is, what are the productive things that we can do? What are some of the things? Karen Bass has got some guy she's running around with, Steve Soberoff. He's a developer, to try to figure out how to put back LA. Now, first of all, they don't have any money, so how are they going to do it, right? It's a federally funded thing. But what she could do, which would be great if she wanted to, would be to get up in front of a microphone, communicate as the mayor of LA, and say, look, here are the things that we're going to do to help this stimulate this. We're going to set up a building department in the Pacific Palisades. That's going to be done on this date certain. We are going to spend the money that we have on hiring outside retired inspectors. We are going to hire geologists, and we are going to create a table of steps that you need to go through to pick up your permit. Your permits will be issued. You do not have to repay for them. This will bring business to the Palisades. This will bring business to the building department. This will bring business in to California instead of this sort of, we don't know what to do and we have to wait for this. And we don't have, and this doesn't cost Karen Bass anything.
So if you were able to get in front of her, would you be willing to do this?
Yeah, if I was sat down with Karen Bass, first of all, I wouldn't want to do it with cameras. I would want to do it privately in a room.
Yeah, no, privately.
Because I feel like she's really in trouble, you know? Yeah. And it's also an insurmountable problem. Like it's a very overwhelming problem. And the first thing I would do is I would put her with someone like, Frank Redna from Southland or Ron Tudor from Tudor Perini, or somebody who runs a business in cleanup and construction that's FEMA licensed, that has, thousands of pieces of equipment and hundreds of thousands of employees. Somebody that can actually do the cleanup. Right. So that person can explain to her what the process is. And so that when she speaks about it, she has an understanding of how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost and what she should do first, right? How do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time.
Right.
She needs to sit and she needs to understand what the process is. And I think she doesn't have the right people around her for that. And my guess is she doesn't have those people because most of those people know that they don't have any money to do it. It has to come through FEMA.
Yeah, because I think she was so preoccupied with the Olympics coming, all these other things, when wasn't concerned about really protecting our citizens. And that's why they neglected to fix all those damaged fire equipment that was sitting there, could have been used. Change the water system, because it draws it from one main tanks, and they should have had diverse tanks. So when you draw from multiple locations, it doesn't lower the pressure, because all the firemen I spoke to said, Mike, there is water, but the pressure is so low because it's drawing at the same time from the same sources. They haven't been updated for 30 years. It's the same water system that worked in those days, but there's many more homes now. And so there's so many things you can do, but she always seemed to, every time I saw her on the news, was talking about the Olympics or some other bullshit, new bullet train or something, instead of focusing on how can we keep California safe between the earthquakes, the fires, and the floods. And it just makes me sick that, like my father said when I was a young man and we were sitting on the couch watching the news, he says, yeah, look at these guys. They're all complaining, cussing out these politicians. But you know what? You can't be mad at them. They're doing what they wanted to do. Get mad at your neighbor. These are the people that put him in office. These are the ones that gave him the power. And these are the people that can make the change. And this is a guy who barely spoke English, came from Italy at 20 years old, had a 4th grade education, but he knew common sense is, hey, you want to change? We have to change because we put that dummy in office, right? And so we got to make the change. We got to, if Bass and Newsom's not going to step up, we got to get them out and find someone that's going to take the place, like you said, with sensible advice, bring the right people together, and figure it out. Because with Trump's in the office, maybe we can get additional funding, which I'm sure he'll somehow allocate. But we need people to know how to wisely use the money. Like you said, bring in the people that know hazardous waste and how to rebuild the community again.
Well, for the person who's lost their house, I just want to explain one of the logical things to do. If you've lost your home, you have to have your house cleaned up before you can rebuild, and you have to get a permit. And the cleanup is triggered as a first step. First, it's EPA, and then it's actually your foundation. Okay? So what you need to do is you need to opt in on the FEMA cleanup. Opt in. Because if you opt in, then FEMA has a list of opt-ins, and that indicates to the federal funding how many people need help. The problem in California is everybody's frustrated with the politics of the day, and nobody trusts anybody. So we are out of the conversation in California, in D.C., and the rest of the states that are Republican, because we are strongly Democratic, And instead of working together with the Trump administration, we were working against the Trump administration. Okay. Now, this is not going to bow well. It doesn't, at a certain point, it's uncle, right? The jig is up, the rubber's hit the road. You got to just say uncle. Okay. Donald Trump has the power to give us FEMA funding quickly. He asked for two things. He asked that the water be turned on from Northern California to get down to Southern California so that we would have more water, which is very difficult to do, not so simple. I understand what he wants, and there's a million ways to address that, but at least make the effort to acknowledge the conversation and try to get the water on, because the water he wants on doesn't come here. It's complicated, but Central Valley has no water. So that is a very important topic, and how that gets worked out those discussions need to take place. So that's number one. The number two thing is he wants voter ID. Well, I want voter ID. The fact that we are a sanctuary state, whatever, I want voter ID. We need voter ID. Those were very reasonable requests. All we got was bad press. Everyone said, listen, he's going to not provide aid unless it's conditioned. The conditions are totally reasonable.
Yeah.
Somebody has to manage the money. And I agree with Donald Trump that someone has to manage the money, because our managers of money here in California have not done a very good job. We are upside down. We used to have $100 million in surplus. We have nothing. We're $70, $80 million in the arrears, in the back, in the red. And so for him to say, look, somebody's got to manage the money, I agree with that. I don't want Karen and Gavin Newsom managing the money. Plus, they have their hands full with other things. Yeah. So as a California resident, I think the best that we could hope for is, there was a poll that was recently done that explains kind of what the voting mentality is here in California. And so 43% of Californians identify as conservative, not necessarily Republicans, but conservatives, and do not identify with the Democratic Party as it sits right now. So whether I was a Democrat and I'm a Republican now, I could very well be in this group that's really challenging. And that's the group that can't decide, which is the biggest group. Am I a Republican or am I a Democrat? Certain things that Democrats have done historically are amazing.
Sure,
But I think it's gone off the tracks a little bit. Like, what are we doing not letting urban forestry cut the trees? What are we doing, defunding our police and our fire department?
That's insanity.
Right. When did my party become the war party? So these are normal conversations that we should be having. So my suggestion is, which is kind of interesting, or at least I've been told is interesting, is most federal programs and voting and registering to vote and doing many things you can do and you can also opt out of. These are not long-term commitments. You could be a Republican today and you could be a Democrat tomorrow. And in a really good game of tug of war, I'm sure you've played tug of war. Yeah. With those muscles, I'm sure you've played tug of war. In a good game of tug of war, it doesn't really work. Really, it's not a good fight. It's not a meaty fight unless it's balanced. And my suggestion is everybody register as a Republican. You can always opt out. But they watch that up in Sacramento. They watch. And if we give it a wave that we are kind of done now, we can become part of the federal conversation. We can become part of we can have aid. We can have some transparency. We have no transparency.
No, but I love the example you brought up with the tug of war. People don't realize when tug of war, it's the person at the end that's the anchor. If you don't have a strong anchor, you have shit.
You have nothing.
So we need that anchor in that tug of war. Otherwise, we're going to just waste our time. It's a shame. That's why I do have access to Bass if you want me to make that call. And maybe I could see if we can make an appointment and go in her office and talk to her sincerely so she doesn't feel like we're trying to set her up, with cameras and the press.
I just want to help organize the first, the communication with the residents and the understanding of, like a simple thing, like tell people that the water is more dangerous when it's heated. Like, people don't understand, what are some solutions? You can get a water tank. You can get a water filtration system. You can not heat your water too much. There's lots of, where are the people that we need desks? And I know it just happened, but to these people, it didn't just happen. To these people, they've been displaced for coming up on a month, and they have no answers. And we have no communication with the federal government. And I really feel like if I can arm Bass with a really good support team behind her and really good guidance and money and equipment and people and organization for that, it would help. Also, every FEMA group, every administration has their own FEMA management. And they set a MATOC out, which is a mandatory award contract. So certain people that are big contractors are already under the FEMA MATOC. And so ECC, who is up in the Palisades working, they have the current MATOC, which is from the Biden administration. And it doesn't end until the end of March. And so they have to find these contractors. And this is if Mayor Bass understood the flow of that and really talk to the people that are in the flow, because you only want people that have FEMA licensing, or they can't even bid on the work. They have to be able to bid on the work. If she just needs to understand just the 1-2 buckle your shoe of things, and then we can infill missing information that she has with qualified people that have a skill set in the question that she's asking. That's the issue.
Yeah, well, I love how you've broken it apart and dissected it and have great suggestions. It's just I hope that we can get this great advice to her and others to show that we do care. We don't want to beat up on her anymore. She's had that enough. Let's give her a chance to do the right thing. She's in power. She's that anchor person, but she needs guidance. And I think what you're bringing is great. So if you could, when you have time, send me an email of all the things you want to do. I'll craft something to personally go to her to request for this private meeting. And let's see if we can make sense of this to maybe get her to consider these ideas you have so we can help the people. Because that's the only way it's going to get done. I think right now she's so gun-shy to get in front of anybody because they've been humiliating her and ambushing her. But if she sees it's coming from a sincere place, we might be able to get hope. Because, listen, I don't care how hated she may be. There's always goodness in people. Maybe we can remind her what she said when she first took office, what she was planning to do. But she's got to listen and stop listening to those people around her that are just yesing her to death and have sensible advice like you have.
I think it's very difficult in a crisis to project authority.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry about that.
Yes, it's getting late in the day. I think it's very important in a crisis to project authority because I think that's a sign of leadership. And I feel like that has been something. I mean, she had to sit next to Donald Trump, and he was on the rampage, and that was hard.
Yeah,
and she tried. She really did try. But that's how he leads. And he is our, leader in chief. All of these governors, all of them need to understand that they work at the behest of the president of the United States, and they have to try, because we, I think as a state, I think we, had something like $600 billion, I want to say, in tax revenue, and federally, and I think that we spent at least $80 million in tax revenue to other states. So we are a meaningful state. Donald Trump should have, and I think does have, a very vested interest in California. And I know that people are stressed about the Trump administration. I understand that, but we are in a crisis, and we cannot go it alone, and we cannot not communicate.
Well, you made such a great point, is that we have to listen. He's our new president, and a lot of the things that he's initiated are fantastic. But Newsom keeps trying to find a way to derail him from doing anything here. That's not being a team player. He's being this spoiled little brat that wants to control everything instead of saying, you know what, he's our president, let's figure out how to make it work. Already he was trying to put things in place to stop him from doing this and that. And you can see he's so resentful and has a hatred instead of saying, you know what, He is our president. I need to support him. What can I do to help my state become healthier and prevent this from happening again? He's trying to put shit in place to roadblocks from him, but Trump will steamroll over this guy. And you can see whenever Trump's name comes up, he gets all twisted inside, And I just know that there's no helping him. Maybe pass, but Newsom's not going to listen to anybody. I have a friend of mine that is one of his closest friends, went to school with Newsom. He said he was a spoiled little brat, always thought he had the answers. He hasn't changed. He's the same way. He won't listen. He thinks he's always right. And the problem is, it's instilled in him. And there's no way to get this guy to say, you know what? I did fuck up. If he ever would do that, I think people would embrace it. But he's got too much of this ego. He feels so empowered, above the law, like when he was during COVID, going out having dinner parties, his wife getting her hair and nails in the back of the salon there. He thought he can get away with anything. No, he should have stayed home just like he made us stay home. So it's obvious that he's a one-sided guy and he doesn't think he's equal to us. He thinks he's over here. And that's something that's genetic issue with him, psychological issue. So he's not going to be a game player, a team player. So that's why if we can get to someone in position of power, like maybe a Bassett might say, guys, you made some sense here. Let's see what we can do together. That's what we need, people that are willing to play ball. But we need that anchor person, and we need all those other sources, like you said, in order to make the change. But I got to say, I want to know more about you. You were 14 years old when you started your business. You have this incredible mind. Was this something just your parents instilled in you?
I'm really entrepreneurial. I think one of my claim to fame is that I've never really had a job. I've always signed the front of a check, not the back.
Right.
So for me, that's been, important to me because it makes me feel like stronger knowing that I can rely on myself. I feel like that is a very critical part of my whole personality. And it instills confidence in me every time I have a success. And every time I have a failure, it's a lesson learned. And there are just as many. You don't need to make it every time. You need to hit it once or twice big. The lessons learned. And failure is like, you have to be, it's hard. Failure is really hard. I mean, that's really where you do all your learning. You do very little if you're all winning. And so I feel like being an entrepreneur and having, some successes when I was young. Also, I'm very Irish Catholic, married an Italian guy, but I'm Irish Catholic. We're stubborn people. And we are hardworking. There's the most important thing, and I always tell my kids this, is you can't outwork me. I don't care who you are. You cannot outwork me. I am absolutely tireless. And there is a way to solve every problem. You just have to break it down. This is a tragedy in the Palisades. It is a bigger tragedy in Altadena because there's less money and there's less resources. The Palisades, these people are not potted plants, okay? They're not going to put up with it. They're going to rebuild. They're going to rebuild how they want to rebuild, and they run the show. And Gavin would be wise to start working with that instead of against it, because these people are the people that voted him into office. They are the biggest Democrats in California, and they love their city. They love their city. And the writing's on the wall. And also, Gavin doesn't seem well to me. Like when he's communicating, the whole thing with the shoulders and all that.
Yeah, that was weird.
He comes across to me as like he's extremely stressed as well. And I'm sure this is overwhelming. He's been excited about the Olympics. He sees himself exiting with this really positive thing that, after so much negativity. Mm-hmm. I think he had his eye on the White House. That's why he was touring around before the Trump thing and this big upset with Trump. There's got to be a roller coaster for him that has happened. Mm-hmm. And maybe the side effect of that roller coaster is what we're seeing. Because I do think if people are brought up and dropped down and brought up and dropped down, it does mess up a little bit how you are able to communicate. And he doesn't seem to understand that he's got a job to do, and he's got a lot of great people around him, and he's the representative of the greatest state in the nation. It's an unbelievable state. And he seems to have kind of lost that a little bit to me.
He's not listening to anybody. He's almost got post-traumatic syndrome.
Yeah.
Right?
Like something's
he
up.
needs help, because when I saw him doing this little squirrely thing, I go, something's going on in his head. Because he was talking about something very serious. You do this when you're kind of maybe flirting with someone or joking, but when you're talking about people dying and losing everything they've had, and you're talking like this, squirming around with the reporter, that was strange.
I one too many Tony Robbins inspiration classes with the arms.
Yeah, I know Tony. God, I know Tony when
He's
had
the best.
nothing.
He can motivate anybody.
Let me tell you something. He slept in his car in the parking lot at Gold's Gym in Venice. I remember when he's just this big, tall guy, big hands, and you're strong too. And he talked to all these positives.
Wait, you know Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Oh, Arnold, I know.
Why don't we have Arnold? Just he was a great governor. What a great governor.
He's a very dear friend.
Why can't he, he's got something to say. Like, I know he's a big Democrat, but at the end of the day, like, that guy knows how to work. He's a hard worker.
Bodybuilding gave him the ability to stay focused, dedicate, and when he does something, he does it 100%. But he's someone we should see if maybe we can have him talk some sense.
I would love to listen to him and just have, like, his opinion. He's so brilliant, and everybody loves the guy.
I'll let you know when he's back in town. He's filming right now, and then we can meet with him. I'll set it up.
I think he's a great guy. Another guy I think you should have on who is really absolutely lovely is Rick Caruso. Rick is a great guy. He's, I think he might, if we're lucky, he'll run for governor. I don't know.
I talked to Rick. I can get in touch with Rick. That's not a problem. If you want me to set something up. Listen, I'm here for you.
I think Rick Caruso, at least as far as the Palisades go, I think I know it would be very hard for Karen Bass to do this, but she should hand the torch to him and let him deal with it. Because he knows everybody. He has the most at stake up there. I mean, think about what he's got at stake. And, Rick's a big developer, but nobody's that big. That is a massive project to be gutted like that. Okay, yeah. You need business to stay alive. The overhead, and he's a developer, so they leverage, and that's their job, so that they can build other things. He is a brilliant guy. He is a kind person, and yeah, he didn't win the mayoral race against Karen Bass, but he is not a sore loser at all.
No,
and
he just moved on.
That's right. And if Karen would let Rick handle the Palisades, she could put some of her resources to Altadena, and Rick would do an incredible job.
But I think his eyes are set on being governor.
Well, yes, but I think he could do both things in a parallel lane.
No, for sure. I mean, I
mean, he gets a whole bunch busier at that level.
Look, he had his own private fire department saving his mall. Come on.
And he should, because he was a part of, listen, my insurance on my properties started pulling out 2 years ago. So, they knew. That's what that equals, right? Think about it, Mike. Why did Chubb leave my home in the Palisades 2 years ago? I had fire suppression systems, new construction. I had no claims because they knew. And why did Lloyd's of London lead one of my properties 2 years ago? Because they knew. And what did they know? They knew that they were not getting guarantees from the state of California that these brush fires would stop happening because there would be brush clearance.
Yeah.
And that is terrible. That is terrible.
Well, but that's the thing. It's just like these life insurance companies. They know the day, the hour you will die. And the insurance companies have the finest teams, AI, algorithms. They saw it, like you said, like forecasting the weather. So they're very smart about navigating around so they don't lose money.
Yep.
And but I just know that we need to work together to make the change because it takes a village, as everybody says. But someone like you that's so relentless, I mean, seriously, I've read so much about you. You're unstoppable, and you dominated in a male-dominated business in construction, and I got to take my hat off to you because you're like an alpha female, and you don't put up with shit.
It's a really good thing to be a woman in a man's world, especially when I was like, doing big construction. It's always better, I think, to be underestimated. I do. I think people. Mind you, I'm not at an age anymore where they don't take me seriously. But I think I was smarter when I was younger because I had bigger balls. I was just like really aggressive. Now I've been banged up a few times. But my greatest experience about California was filming Undercover Billionaire, because I got dropped in Fresno and I got to live with farmers for 90 days. And the amount of food that we have in this state is, first of all, it's called the America's Food Basket. And that is because we grow about 80% of the fruits, nuts, and stone fruit for the United States in Fresno.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, most people don't. And they have been starved of water from this administration. And they have killed the farming industry. And the farming industry in itself is... Are you part of the Maha movement? Are you a Bobby Kennedy fan?
Yeah, I'm working with Bobby, yeah. Great
Okay,
guy.
so Bobby and I are good friends, and I love Bobby. And what I love about Bobby the most is that Bobby will talk to anybody about anything, anytime. That is true leadership. That is true leadership. You will talk to anybody about anything at any time. You're not afraid of any conversation or any camera or any class of person or anything. That is true leadership. Bobby Kennedy is true leadership. I know he's getting some blowback from his family. Nonsense. He has worked harder at being Bobby Kennedy than anybody has ever worked at being anybody. He has spent every day praying for better guidance to do the next right thing. And between Maha and the Central Valley, California is going to become the most important state in the nation because he's going to work on small farming. We have 88,000 small farmers. I only eat fresh food. I have a farm in Fallbrook. We've got 40 acres there. We farm, 10, 15 acres of fresh vegetables. We have a partnership with a big beef and poultry company. And fresh food will change your life. And what we're eating daily and what we are feeding our kids through the SNAP program and all of those things all has to be readdressed. This fire is a distraction to what we really need to do. We really need to take care of California for what California is worth. And that's going to require, communication. And I guess I'm just disappointed because my mayor, who is now my mayor, who got the job and took the job and swore an oath, needs to communicate and needs to communicate happily. Like, what can I do to help? Who can help me?
Yeah. She needs to be more humble.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're so right about the food because we are what we eat.
We are what we eat.
And I go to all the local farmer markets, and that's where I get all my food. I'm not going to the Sprouts or the Whole Foods and all that. I'm going to the farmer's market, and I see the people that own the market and their children selling the items there. And I'll buy a few pounds of this, a few pounds of that. And I feel good that I'm supporting them. At the same time, it's not being loaded with all this crap that's out there today. And because, in farming, as you know, if you allow the plant, whether it's a tomato, cucumber, pepper, whatever it may be, it has the full growth cycle, it's grabbing all the nutrients, all the minerals out of the soil. But as you know, they take it while it's still green, hasn't had the full life cycle. So the fruits and vegetables don't have the same value as it was the old school, the local farmers. They gas it, they prematurely ripen it, and bring it to the store so it doesn't have,
They also grow it hydroponically. It doesn't even see soil.
Right, and it's just growing. I remember as a kid, my father used to go to the garden, get some vegetables, make a salad tonight. I'd cut open that beefsteak tomato, smell it, the juicy, it was beautiful. Now you cut a tomato. There's no flavor. Unless you put dressing on it, But we have to wrap it. I'm sorry. I want to thank you.
Oh my gosh.
You need to come back on, and we need to work
Well,
together.
I'm going to text you. I'm going to send you our 559 farm train. I'm going to send you our farm train,
Cool.
which is all about moving food across the United States on rail.
I love it.
And I'm going to hit you up on Bass and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And Caruso.
We're going to
let's work together and
we could have a little like nice little dinner and kind of figure out a plan.
let's do it. We'll bring Bobby with us. Come on.
Bobby's getting confirmed. 78%.
Thank God.
They're all going to get confirmed. Thank God.
Thank God, man. I've been praying for
He's a
him, man.
walking miracle. I love him.
Yeah,
Absolutely love him.
He's at goals every morning when he's in town.
I love it.
He's trains like an animal.
What a
So
great
fun.
spot that Gold's Gym. You want to go meet some really big movers. They're always there.
Well, that's where I'm going to bring you to meet Arnold. We're
I
gonna
love
when he
it.
comes in town, we'll go meet him at the gym.
I love it.
It's a perfect time because he's relaxed.
Yeah. I would
And
love
Arnold's not like the years ago when we used to train before the Olympia. He wants to talk.
I just want his help. I want him to help us because we need it. We're in a crisis. He needs to help.
Yeah, he will.
He knows what to do. You know, he's going to certainly, like, none of his advice is going to be bad.
And he can call people directly and get them on phone.
Mm-hmm. There's that too.
That's the great thing about Arnold.
Yeah.
And, you know, he wants to be involved again in some way. So even if he can help with this, would make him feel really wonderful.
What do you think about a Democratic governor and a Republican lieutenant governor? What about a do team?
I think it'd be great.
Well, the other thing about lieutenant governor, you know, that's the job of bringing business into California. And I think it would be really, like, helpful. You know, a lot of people are scared to invest in California because of the craziness with, like, changing taxes and you know, raise and things that really are unpredictable. And I think if you had a Republican lieutenant governor, that might really help a lot.
Listen, it's just like saying an Italian can't work with a Jew. Come on. All right? They work together. In fact, we work better because we understand each other. It all down to what's in their heart, what's in their soul, what do they want to do. Do they really want to achieve? We work together. So a Republican and a Democrat and independent can all work together.
How do we get so divided?
I don't know,
crazy.
man. It's so racist.
So crazy.
Right? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. It breaks my heart.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming
This
on.
is awesome.
This has
So
been great.
nice to meet you.
I thank you for watching. Please share this episode because it'll enlighten you and your friends. And I appreciate if you could subscribe. We need your support. Thank you. Thanks.